Welcome back. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the Detroit Lions 3-round mock draft. So we're going to break down all the picks here. Let's orient you real quick, just kind of what you're looking at. Obviously, the name in blue is the Lions player that we selected for them. We did want to include a couple picks before and after, and I will say you probably figured out by now the numbers are off a little bit as we are recording this on February 8th. We did this mock draft before the championships. So we did a mock draft for all 32 teams on one big mock draft board. I did all 100 picks. So just getting to the Lions here now. And so I feel like kind of too at this point in the draft, it's all kind of theory anyways, because they are going to be selecting at 29, I believe, actually.
Yeah.
And so, 29. So one pick earlier. So we ended up having to go with Keon Coleman here at the receiver position. I will say I'm personally not the biggest fan of Keon Coleman. I think he is kind of like a one-trick pony, just a deep ball guy. That being said, I think now you have with Monroe St. Brown and James Williams as their speedster guy. Then you got Sam Laporta. I think having a guy like Keon Coleman, that jump ball guy, I think would just be a different flavor of something that they don't really have as of right now. And so, but that being said, though, too, they need help on the defensive interior. I think they could go get an edge rusher. Chop Robinson was available for this one. I think you put him on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson. Chop Robinson needs a lot of development, but at the same time, though, Hutchinson's going to bring so much attention. I think Robinson, would just be able to have all these athletic one-on-one matchups. I think he can win some of those. So I want to throw it over to you here, Ryan. What's your overall thoughts on Keon Coleman and some of the things you think the Lions can do here with the first?
So for me, I like Keon Coleman for what he is. I think this goes not to back toward Travis. I think some of what Keon Coleman struggled with was partly due to just the fact that the quarterback play was not quite up to par of some of the other elite athletic wide receivers in this class, and I think that's what Keon Coleman is. He played Division I Big Ten basketball at Michigan State under Tom Izzo, and then actually he played football there as well. Made the transfer over to Florida State, and in terms of skill sets, you don't get a 6'5", 220-pound receiver that is athletically gifted enough to return punts and kickoffs and play inside, outside, in formations, take handoffs. You don't see that every day. And I'm really curious to see what he'll run at the combine in terms of his 40. But one of the things that I really like about him is just how fluid of an athlete he is. He doesn't look like a guy that could be moving like that at his size. And I think from there, those are things you just can't teach. And I think from there, if you can teach him the proper footwork, the proper route technique, I think he has the hands already to play at the NFL level. And I think you need to kind of get him into a system that is going to benefit him. And I think you look at what the Lions do. They have him on St. Brown. That's Jared Goff's possession receiver. That's his binky over the middle, right? You have Sam Laporta, who stretches the seams, right? And again, is also does a lot of the dirty work over the middle. Then you have Jameson Williams, who's kind of that Z receiver. And I mean, they gave him a handoff in the NFC Championship game, all sorts of stuff. And for me, I think if you throw in Keon Coleman into that mix, this is a top 5 offense in the league, no matter what, just because now you have that dominant outside X receiver. To me, I think he could be the Devontae Parker 1,000-yard season in Miami guy, right? He's going to catch 65 balls a year for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns as his ceiling. And he's not going to be the Justin Jeffersons, in my opinion, but again, just a really solid wide receiver that I think fits this system perfectly. So,
yeah, no, I can see it. And then especially what you talked about as well with their other 3 weapons, how they can stretch the field. And then you have the running game as well. You just, if you have that guy that is we have to, we can't bring the safeties up. We have to watch this guy deep. Otherwise he can burn us. And so that's why I think he fits into the system and what they're looking for. Well, just give them another option. I do think looking at the NFC Championship game, though, and how that went, I think they do need to beef up that defensive line, whether it be on the interior or get another edge rusher on the outside. So that's where I'd be curious to see who is available here. Byron Murphy worked his way up. We do have Devondre Sweat there also. Devondre Sweat would just be I mean, he's a 360-pound just behemoth of a man. Just put him
Another
in the middle there.
guy at that size that moves so fluid that you never ever see. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
granted, we saw Jordan Davis 2 years ago, but like, again,
Yeah.
those guys were once in a blue moon type of prospects. So
yeah, absolutely.
let's.
Oh,
I was gonna say, let's move on now to our second pick for the Lions here at pick 62. DJ James, the cornerback, I believe, out of Minnesota, but he's 6'2", 200. Just going to be a really physical corner. I do think he's going to be more of like your slot corner and could potentially be a safety as well.
Auburn, by the way.
Auburn, okay. I was thinking of TJ Tampa, who pplayed for Minnesota.
No, he played for Iowa State.
Iowa State?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm striking out on this one. But again, I think a really versatile corner that I think they really need to invest in the defensive side of the ball. Specifically, I think the secondary and then like defensive interior. I think they have a lot of the other pieces figured out. DJ James, again, a very versatile guy that I think is going to be a contributor from day one.
Yeah. And I think the Minnesota guy you were talking about is Tyler Nubin, the safety out of there, who I also think would be a solid option here as well. Just get some younger safety depth because you have now Brian Branch, who's going to they have him listed here as a nickel for the Detroit Lions on our lads. But I also think too potentially like you throw him in there as free safety or a strong safety as well. You just kind of keep building that young secondary depth. Yeah, because that I think is another thing, as I already mentioned too. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson, then they do. I think outside of Aiden Hutchinson, I think they're just a little. They could just keep just incrementally improving in other areas of the defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, there's not really too much else. I mean, they have a couple key free agents. I think that they need to re-sign. Maybe Frank Ragnow. He was only drafted in 2018, but they're talking about potentially him leaving. I've heard some rumors about that. And by leaving, I mean retiring. So maybe there's some areas there on the offensive line you might want to improve on. But in general, though, the defensive side of the ball could just slowly, incrementally just keep improving. Because outside of Aiden Hutchinson, there's not too much just like explosive talent, so to say. Where like, hey, we have to watch out for these guys. So getting a guy like DJ James or going else or going around getting some other good.
And I will say, like they did a good job last year. You already talked about Brian Branch, but Jack Campbell, another really solid pick there as well.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and move on to this pick right here. Mason Smith, the defensive tackle, I believe out of LSU. He's going to be a little bit more of a run stuffer, but I think just a really good all-around defensive tackle. I think this is a spot where you're really going to see like interior offensive linemen and defensive tackle start to come off the board because I don't think a lot of them are going to have like these elite traits of like the Jerza Newtons or even like the Jackson Powers Johnsons, right? That are going to be kind of first-round talents. But then you have all these guys that just do things well, right? Like they do their job well, and they're going to just be solid NFL players and come in and can contribute right away. And I think this is going to be that sweet spot, kind of like second half of round 2 into the first half of round 4. You're going to see this big chunk of just kind of interior players go off the board. And I think Mason Smith falls in that category.
Well, and that's too. It's not the sexiest pick or position to play, but that's really where a lot of the good teams go and win, and where the teams that are normally picking the top 10, that's where they really struggle. So it's kind of a neat little dichotomy here. And so this is where if they can beef up that interior, take pressure off of Aiden Hutchinson and pressure away from Aiden Hutchinson, he can go and have a Myles Garrett type season. And I think a guy like Mason Smith could do that. Devondre Sweat's already the guy that we mentioned. I believe just with his overall size, he might fall because he is a little bit more kind of role specific, so to say.
He's
kind
a
of
nice tackle.
Like a Saiki Ika type of deal. But Kinley Jackson out of Indianapolis, I think could be another guy as well that they could go after here. And so not out of Indianapolis, he was drafted by Indianapolis. So let's round this out though. The last pick here, we did want to address that interior offensive line because they do have a couple of guards that are free agents. And we ended up going with Zach Zenter here. And I think that this would be an interesting developmental piece. One has that Michigan connection, similar to Aiden Hutchinson, but I think you're getting him at a steal. I think this might be a little early just because we'll have to see kind of how his leg is progressing, but he had that gruesome knee injury, unfortunately, versus Ohio State. But that was around Thanksgiving, so it has been
3.5 months,
something like that, 2.5 months, 3 months. So by
Yeah.
the time we get to the combine, it'll be over 3 months. Yeah, it'll be over 3 months. And then by draft day, it'll be 4 or 5 months. So he'll have a lot of good time to go and prep. Not saying he'll be available to start or be a backup at the beginning of the season, but you can still kind of begin that process of training him, getting him ready for the season. And then maybe in the second half of the season, you could see him play because he is a great talent. If he didn't have that injury, I think we'd be talking about him potentially as a early second round, late first round. I think interior offensive.
Yeah, he was going to be one of the top interior offensive linemen because he can play center, he can play guard, and yeah, I just think he would be at the top of that range up there with Jackson Powers Johnson and some of those guys. So all in all, here just to kind of round things out. With the first round pick at pick 30, Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. Not Blake Corum. Who was it?
DJ James.
Yeah, DJ James out of Auburn. And then Mason Smith, the defensive tackle, and Zach Zenter, the interior offensive lineman from Michigan. I just think, again, the Lions have the star power, I think, to get to the NFC Championship game. We saw that this year, right? They have the Aiden Hutchinsons. They have the Amon-Ra St. Browns. Even Sam Laporta came on as a rookie tight end. Jameson Williams really started to make his presence felt there at the end of the season. Jared Goff looked calm and composed in that NFC Championship game for them, besides like that 5-minute stretch where they didn't do like basically cost themselves the game in 5 minutes. And then like Jahmyr Gibbs looks to be a really solid running back. And so again, I think like they have all these players. I think they just need to add like kind of the supporting cast guys. And I think that's kind of what this draft is, right? You get the run stuffing defensive tackle, you get the interior offensive linemen to kind of come in and like hold things together as maybe players age or move on. And then you get the wide receiver to kind of be the perfect complement to what you already have. And I just think that this would be a really solid group for them to go and get.
Yeah, no, I agree. When you're picking so late in the first round, it's very interesting on the type of philosophy on what route you want to go. And so I think I can see them going with Keon Coleman and go get that other receiver that they don't have. You can also see them going and maybe addressing that interior defensive line with the guy like Byron Murphy, or maybe if George Newton falls, they go and get him because that would be an amazing kind of addition to what they're needing right now. Or if guys like Quinton Mitchell fall, or Rakestraw or Karen Arnold, or I think Cooper DeJean, I think also would be a great guy as well. So they're in a good spot to immediately go and find day one impact guys with their first round pick, just with how deep this class is. So I think they're right there. I think we're all still rooting for them, except for our own personal teams. They're like our second team, and so
yeah.
And there's always next year. So I guess that's what I'll just say to that.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And on that, we will see you guys next time.